We have tens of thousands of different varieties of microbes and bacteria in our guts. An imbalance of these can be responsible for so many common problems: digestive disorders, acid reflux, inflammatory bowel disease, chronic indigestion, bloating, gas, constipation, you name it. A huge range of digestive problems can be down to an imbalance of this gut microbiome. So what I'm going to do today is share with you some of the secrets of herbs and food and diet in regards to probiotics, prebiotics, microbiome, and how you can rebalance these things and get it all working again properly. Chronic constipation is when we have bowel motions less often than we should. And ideally, in a perfect world, we'd have a couple of bowel motions a day. But for most of us, a pretty healthy regular bowel it's daily. But if you're having less than, for example, 3 bowel movements a week, and that's long term, so for several months at a time, then you've got what's called chronic constipation. And that's affecting 63 million people in the US. So these are US numbers, but you can extrapolate this across the world. So a huge number of people suffering with chronic constipation. And of course, this can be really uncomfortable, and of course, it's going to interfere with the proper functioning of the whole intestine over time. And this needs to be addressed. So one of the great things with herbal medicine is there are so many things in the plant kingdom that can help with digestion, with bowel movements, with the function of the digestive organs, with secretion of digestive acids and juices and so on. So there's so much support there for most of these digestive disorders that we're going to talk about. Interestingly, ulcers are caused by an imbalance of the gut bacteria. This is part of the gut microbiome. Microbiome is really the topic of this discussion, if you like. Gut dysbiosis being an imbalance of the gut microbiome. Gastric ulcers are caused by bacteria called Helicobacter. And an interesting thing, one of the cures in herbal medicine for gastric ulcer is cayenne pepper, or other herbs that will kill Helicobacter. But cayenne pepper, and you wouldn't think, would you? For an ulcer, you think that would actually make it hurt more, make it worse. But what it does is it kills the bacteria, the bad bacteria, Helicobacter, and allows the gut to heal. It also stops bleeding, cayenne pepper, so it's very, very good. But look at this, it affects 15.5 million people in the US. So it's quite a number. A lot of people end up with hospitalization, and you can also die from an ulcer if it starts to bleed and you lose blood into your gut. Severe pain, stomach pain, and bloating and bleeding, obviously, are signs of a gastric ulcer. Irritable bowel syndrome. So this is becoming increasingly popular, I guess, or common, and that's affecting 15.3 million people. An irritable bowel is, yes, you might have some constipation with this, but you'll also have extreme evacuations. So almost like diarrhea, where you might go 3 or 4 or 6 times in one day, and then you might have constipation where you don't go for 3 or 4 or 5 days, and it might flip back and forwards between those two. So that's how you'll know you've got an irritable bowel. And that can be extremely painful as well. Also very, very common, there's again another 15 million people affected there, hospitalizations and deaths. So pretty severe, these digestive disorder. And this is probably one of the most painful ones. I've experienced this in my practice, where people have Crohn's disease. And this is known to be an autoimmune disease. So this is where your gut has become so imbalanced that the immune system is starting to attack the gut. And this can become very, very severe ulceration of the gut and the intestine. And almost impossible to cure as far as mainstream medicine goes. Steroids and painkillers are usually given, but with herbal medicine there is a lot you can do to heal that gut. And look at this one, 359,000 people affected with that. So it's still a lot of people with a very, very severe digestive disorder. And there's hospitalizations and deaths for that as well. I thought I'd share this because this is one of the revelations I had early on when I was studying the digestive system, and it came about through realizing that what goes in the body has to break down. And this is a great AI image of decomposition, which is what actually happens in digestion. So as food goes into the stomach, it's attacked by acids, and then further down by enzymes, and organisms and bacteria all contribute to this breakdown of the food that we eat. And think about it from this perspective. What goes out the bottom end of your digestive system is the feces, but it's also very, very similar to compost or manure that you put on your garden. So feces is decomposed food that's been broken down by organisms, by acids and enzymes and bacteria. And so think of your digestive system as a composting system. Now, I think this is a bit of an epiphany when you realize it, because think of the things that you wouldn't put in your compost. And if you wouldn't put them in your compost, they probably shouldn't go through your digestive system because they're not going to decompose very well. So foods that have got preservatives that are designed to stay on the shelf are going to disrupt the gut microbiome. And this is going to lead to dysbiosis or imbalance of the gut microbiome. So it's, when you think about what's in the supermarket, what's on the shelves, that's all designed to sit there and have a long shelf life. So it's not going to break down in your gut, in your body. And if you can unpack a food and put it on the kitchen bench and it sits there for a week or 2 or 3 and it's not going moldy and breaking down, then it's not going to go down through your body very well, is it? And that's the golden rule, I think, of digestion, is if it won't decompose in your compost, it's not going to digest in your body very well. Nuts, seeds, grains, processed meats, preserved packaged foods, noodles, pasta, bread even. A lot of the bread now doesn't go moldy for weeks and weeks. So these things don't digest very well. It's a great one to remember: decompose and digest. Prebiotics, you've probably heard of probiotics. Probiotics are really commonly given in supplement form, and these are usually introduced especially after you've had a course of antibiotics, because we all know what happens with antibiotics. They basically destroy or wipe out the microbiome in the gut. And so therefore a good course of probiotics is used, and quite commonly things like acidophilus or yogurt are used as probiotics. Then you've got prebiotics, and prebiotics are things that introduce nutrient foods to support the good microbiome. So they feed and nourish the probiotic bacteria and microbes in the gut. And then you've got medicinal herbs. So we're going to talk about this as well, because medicinal herbs are so powerful, both as being prebiotics, but also as digestive support and healing for the gut wall, which also acts as prebiotic in effect. So let's have a look through. This is the first part of it, the prebiotics for gut health, and we'll work our way through. So prebiotics were discovered back in the 90s, as they are really non-digestible foods. So usually in the form of fiber, it helps to feed and nourish the good bacteria in your gut. So all bacteria is basically going to stay there, but it's just got to be in the right balance. So we want to feed the good and not so much feed the bad. And as we mentioned just earlier about antibiotics, once you've had a course of antibiotics, it knocks out the good and the bad. And so what happens is, and this is quite common, for example, if you're to weed the garden and plant some plants, what tends to grow back first? Usually the weeds. So the unwanted bacteria are a bit like that. They'll come in there really fast after the antibiotics and start to grow rapidly. And that's why you end up with an imbalance of the bacteria after antibiotics. So the bad, unfortunately, are the fastest at getting in there and taking over, getting hold of the gut. And so things like Helicobacter, for example, it's a bad one. So that's what happens with antibiotics, and why it's so important to put prebiotics in as well as probiotics. So you feed the good, fertilize the good, basically. Let's just dig into these a little bit more. They are available in foods, and particularly high fiber foods. So prebiotics come in the food in a couple of ways. Insoluble fiber, which basically goes in our body and goes out of our body again without much change. So these are kind of fibers that basically you get in nuts and seeds and virtually indigestible foods, whole grains and things like that. And that bulks up the bowel movement. So you get a lot of fiber, helps to create those bowel motions. And then you've got soluble fiber, which takes up water, and it can actually be digested and broken down eventually. And this also makes us feel full and helps to bulk and soften and liquefy the bowel movements as well. And you can get soluble fiber in linseeds, chia seeds, psyllium husk, which we'll talk about in a moment, lentils, dal, celery, carrots, leafy greens. A lot of them have soluble fiber. That's actually the one you want to have a little bit more of than the insoluble. If you have too much of the insoluble fiber, for example, whole grains and nuts and bran and things like that, you can actually end up with constipation because it doesn't take up the water like the soluble fiber. So that's worth having a look at. And by the way, I should mention that with this, there's a QR code in the corner there that'll take you straight to where this is, where we're talking about at the moment. And you'll see there's a lot of links on here to, you can click on these links to the different ingredients and herbs and so on and get more information. Okay, so we did mention psyllium husk. This is one of the most popular ones that's used as a bulky fiber. It's used in products and laxative products as a soluble fiber. And of course, this is a slightly different type of fiber. It's mucilaginous. So it forms a gel. And you might notice if you've had chia seeds, for example, you can do this with chia seeds, is just put a bit of water with the chia seeds and let it sit and stir it up and let it sit, and it will form into a gel. And so this is a mucilaginous fiber. And these are very, very good as prebiotics for the bowel. They soften, soothe, heal, help provide nutrient for good bacteria as well. And we use psyllium husk a lot in a combination with our herbal detox programs and gut health programs. So psyllium husk, it's a good one. Then you've got your probiotics. Of course, you can introduce these in the supplement form, but a really good way to get this is if you do get a supplement probiotic, a secret that I use is you can empty this into a pot of yogurt, and you can let that yogurt sit overnight in your warming cupboard, and you will get a massive multiplication of the probiotics. And so you'll get a lot more probiotics for your money if you do this. It's a great tip. So you could literally get 10 times more by the morning of the probiotics in the yogurt. So it's a really good thing to do. But just consuming lots of plain yogurt with acidophilus bacteria is a very good thing to do, and include it in your smoothies. So probiotics really help the whole gut process, and you can see here they improve the bowel function, absorption of nutrients, because the good bacteria are involved in that whole digestive process and absorption, help the immune system. Your immune system is a huge part of the gut health, control the bad bacteria, and also cancer protection. They help break down carcinogenic products that can accumulate in the gut. So a good reason to have probiotics. And here's a bit more about immunity with probiotics and immunity. They actually activate the immune cells that are present in the gut. And I think it's 80 to 85% of your immune cells reside in the gut wall and in that area. And they're held in that area and reserved, ready to attack. Probiotics can really help with your gut immune function. And we all know what it's like to get a stomach bug or an infection in our gut. It's pretty nasty. So another good reason to keep those probiotics up. Now we're going to move into the next category, which is food. Because if you look at sterile food or processed food or food that comes off a supermarket shelf that's been preserved for a shelf life reason, usually that food is dead in every sense of the word. So in other words, when it goes into your gut, it's not going to be providing food for the gut microbiome. So the best thing to do is to go plant-based, but also to have a lot of organic food and easily digestible food. So let's talk about this a little bit further. The most easily digested food is food that's high in enzymes, because enzymes work in the digestive process. And so fruits are so easy to digest. And if you leave fruit lying around, it will actually digest itself. That's how helpful fruit is to digestion. The enzymes in fruit, and especially pineapple and papaya, those are the two richest sources of digestive enzymes. So it's really good to have that kind of tropical fruit in your diet. And we include those in our programs as well as part of the herbal combination, those enzymes. It's also very good to go organic with your diet as far as feeding the microbiome, because organic food hasn't been sprayed with pesticides, it hasn't been basically sterilized of all organisms, and there are a lot of organisms on the food that help with digestion. And for example, a good example of this is vitamin B12. It used to be something that we got with the food, with a plant-based diet, because the microbes on the food would help the body to and produce their own vitamin B12. And so now if you buy basically sterile produce from the supermarket, your body will not be able to do that, and you'd have to take a vitamin B12 supplement if you're a vegetarian. So this is just one example of organic food having this living microorganism property which can help your microbiome. So you also get more antioxidants which help to heal the gut wall and protect the gut from inflammation. So another good reason to go organic. Vegetarian diet is also known to be very beneficial for digestion and gut health and generally inflammation in the body. It helps to reduce the buildup of fats in the liver, so that's our digestive organ, that whole digestive process. Vegetarians don't need so many medications, they have better body mass index, so going vegetarian, requiring less medications, also helps improve your gut microbiome. But one thing to remember about a plant-based diet is to have a low lectin diet. So in other words, not a lot of nuts and grains and seeds and even legumes can be hard to digest. And like we talked about before with insoluble fiber, they don't break down very easily in your body. So when you go plant-based, more fruit, more vegetables, more soft foods, more enzyme-rich foods, more raw foods is the way to go. These are some of the top herbs for gut health. Peppermint, we know peppermint is very, very soothing for the gut, reduces bloating, relaxes the digestive muscles. Byproduct is it helps the gut microbiome. Fennel seeds. So these are used quite often in Indian food. You'll get seeds to eat after your meal to help your digestion, and fennel is one of those seeds. Cumin would be another one, caraway. Those seeds really help digestion. So great to help just that whole digestive process. And ginger, if you've got indigestion or nausea, it helps to reduce inflammation. It's an anti-inflammatory, it helps the gut lining. Then you've got cayenne pepper. That really helps with motility. It increases the production of enzymes and juices. So it gets everything going, gets all the digestive juices going, which is great for the gut health. Cloves, that's also very good for knocking the bad bacteria. It's a pain reliever, so it's very good for gut pain. Stomach bugs, helps knock the bad bacteria there. And then we've got slippery elm. That's a really powerful gut healer. It's quite often used in childhood colic for babies. Make a little slippery elm drink for them and spoon feed it. That's a herb we use in the whole program as part of a combination to help to heal the gut, along with aloe vera. So, and you probably all know about aloe vera for burns on the skin. But think of it internally when you drink aloe vera or you use powdered aloe vera, that it helps with the integrity of the gut wall and helps to balance the gut microbiome. So those are probably the top herbs I would select, and they are all in the program that we use for gut health in the Herbal Detox program. And I thought we'd just mention that lastly. So the Herbal Detox program contains all of the herbs above and all the dietary recommendations above as well. So if you're looking to help with your gut health, then getting all of these things together in synergy, working together, it's called the entourage effect. When you get all of these things that actually complement each other, you can dramatically promote gut health, gut healing, and resolution of those conditions we mentioned right in the very beginning. Indigestion, bloating, gas, acid reflux, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, even Crohn's disease, colitis, and that sort of thing. So anything that's related to gut health can potentially be healed. And I do recommend doing a program, not just once, but once a year at least, twice a year to begin with, if you've got pretty severe or long-term conditions. And by doing a herbal detox program, it sort of encourages you to do all the dietary things as well. Introduces all the prebiotics, probiotics as part of it as well. Cleanse the colon, knock the bad bacteria, and just basically relieve the body of the whole stress related to anything as far as an imbalance of the gut health goes.